maybe some people listening to this know the situation that you prepare a presentation and then cannot find the most recent one of this one single slide. Then you maybe call someone in the marketing department and ask, hey, where is this presentation? I need this slide for my presentation tomorrow. So and this takes a lot of time and also costs companies a lot, to be honest.
Hey everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the World of Presentations podcast, brought to you by us at Presentation Agency 356 Labs. I'm Boris, the founder of the company and your host for today's episode. And today, with me, I have another founder of a company from the presentation industry. All right, so stay with me here. So who is with us today? He is the founder of a company that's called Presono. He'll probably tell us quite a lot more about the tool that they have built. He is also one of our speakers at Present to Succeed 2022. And third thing, he and his company Presono actually were the first sponsor of the event for 2022. So again, Martin, thank you so much for trusting us with that one that early on. So obviously you heard his name. His name is Martin Behrens. Martin, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Boris, thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So for everyone who is listening, yes, Martin runs a presentation company. He has built the tool Presono with his team. But don't worry, this is not going to be a spammy type of selling episode or anything like this. I wanted to bring Martin into the podcast so that we can talk about the issues that he and his team sees with the corporate presentations and how one or you that are listening or watching to this can fix those. All right. And of course, we have to hear what Presono is. But Martin, we always start with the story, the backstory, like how you ended up being in the presentation industry, because every one of our guests, which are now, to be very frank, 91 people, this is episode 91 secretly. So 91 people have very strange stories of how they ended up in the presentation space. What's your story?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm asking this myself every day. No,
All right.
How I ended up here. No, it's actually maybe it's really a little bit of funny story. I focused during school times on music and German language and literature, and this doesn't sound like an IT company like we're having today. So I started with music and literature and ended up in theatrical acting after school and wanted to do this as a profession. And yeah, I tried it in some universities and wasn't that bad, I think. But I learned during these auditions that it's kind of chasing a dream. It's chasing a dream, and for some people it works out, and for some not. So, but then I realized, okay, maybe I should change the topic for my future working profession. And yeah, through the theatrical things, I had some cards of invitations, some videos I edited, and all these things. The website for our group of where we acted, and so I stepped into the multimedia area. But on the other hand, I love to be on stage, so I always followed things where it was about how your presence on stage is and how you're doing on stage, and therefore also I think it's a very natural reaction that I love presentations also during school time. So whenever I had the chance to be on stage, I love to be there, and therefore there's a close connection to the topic of presentations. Then I switched to this multimedia area and moved from Germany to Austria, and I did my studies here in multimedia technology and design. And yeah, this was actually the part where I found my way into this IT range of IT in this IT area. And after while having a job as a programmer, a software developer, and project manager in an agency, I got to know one of my co-founders, or both co-founders actually. And then he told me, "Hey, I'm working in a larger corporate, and we have a lot of issues with this presentation topics in product management, marketing, sales, and I have this idea." And then he told me about his basic idea, and I understood from a presenter point of view this problem situation, and also I knew from an agency perspective how our customers for the from the, of the agency were working, and so therefore I saw this issue, and then we saw each other, "Hey, okay, let's do this, let's solve this, let's tackle this problem and dive into this." And this is now, it's 6 years ago, but yeah, we're still working on this, and so the company evolves from year to year. That was basically the story behind. So I love to be on stage, and I love this whole area of presentation, and I love it when someone really can present on point and really good. But I also know that the classical pitch is something different than a sales presentation, also something different than a keynote on stage. So there are different types of presentation, and each and every presentation has different things it needs, actually, from the presenter point of view as well as from the visual representation and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of them are so different, and they have, each one of them has their nuances, right? So you need to know them, obviously, depending on what role you are in, what type of presentation, obviously, you have to deliver afterwards, etc. Let's talk about that corporate world. You mentioned that one, you, when you were working as an, like when you were working as an IT person, you met your two co-founders, etc. Um, and they were talking to, or were you working as an IT person, or you were just learning? Sorry for that one.
No, I was working as a programmer, as a developer.
Got it. And then you met the two co-founders, and they were talking to you
Yeah,
about
one
all
was
those issues.
e-
What were
exactly.
those issues? Like what were they telling you? Because I think that, having in mind that our audience is the business professionals who are coming from that corporate world, they may recognize themselves in those. So what were some of those issues?
There are a lot. Let me start with
Okay,
the
let's
one that
start. Top three.
that was the let me start with the one that was the initial starting point of the idea of Presono. So it's a problem my co-founder Hannes, who had the actual idea, came up with, and he was a young professional in the area of product management. So only 1 or 2 years after starting his first real job, and then he had the issue to uh, keep all presentations up to date in different languages. So they had product presentations, and they had a German version, an English version, a French version, a Czech version, and so on. So 4 or 5 or 6 versions. And he told me that he had this issue because he changed an image in one version and didn't know afterwards which version this was, and if it was changed already in the other ones, then he changed one number because the product has a new length or height or weight or whatever, a new specification. He changed it in one presentation and then had to rethink, okay, I have to change it in every version. Then he changed this, and a week later, he recognized some presentations internally and saw that other colleagues already had copies of the old versions with the old numbers or images. And he said, "Hey, okay, my first approach was to have some kind of language management like it's on the website. You switch between two languages, the image
Yeah.
stays the same, you only have to update the image once, for example. You get a notification if a translation was changed to change all the other translations. It's so easy in the web at this time. Please keep in mind it was 6 years ago that we started, and he had the idea, I think, some years earlier already. So the first approach was to have some kind of language management to resolve this issue of different versions, only to have multiple translations of the same file. So because basically a product presentation is always the same, you just need it in English and German and so on. And this was the first part where we started with.
Yes,
And
that one is what, like, most of the times sales and marketing will face that problem. Probably HR, anyone. Who are the teams that are struggling most with that? For sure, sales. That is guaranteed.
definitely everything that's sales, marketing, and maybe product management.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and this is so also many of the other problems I'm talking about are in this range. So we know there is CEO that has a keynote to hold. Yeah, but this is a one-time thing. They prepare for this keynote. Just let's think about Steve Jobs. So he prepared weeks or even months for this one presentation. So there was no reused slide or content. So this is basically another part of the job, even in larger companies. If the C level wants to have a town hall meeting with all these things, so this is basically not the area where we recognize these problems, but the problems we saw are in marketing, sales, product management, a little bit HR, service and support. Maybe if they have presentations in services, it's yeah, there are presentations too. Also in training, if you have
Yeah.
a training department, they have a lot of presentations to do. And yeah, so these are the areas or the teams that have these issues. And yeah, so basically, if we explain the list of issues, we always start with a kind of screenshot from a lot of presentation files, and we all know these folders where we have this final two, final version. And so because we always have think about maybe losing some data, or having to redo some things, and yeah, we all know it. And this is the starting point, because this is basically the point where it gets really hard in teams and companies. For an individual, this is completely okay, but as soon as you have content of your company that should be presented, it becomes really hard, because not every seller, for example, or even in training, not every person who does trainings knows about the current numbers and figures and facts. Let's just start with that. So if the company has a new yearly revenue, it needs to be changed. So most of the time this gets changed, a new file is placed on, let's say, SharePoint or a central server, and yeah, everyone copies this file.
Yeah.
And as soon as you update the number, no one has the most recent version, because everyone has the old copied file, and they don't know how many times they reuse this in their own presentations again. So
Yeah.
basically, there's a huge issue for companies in these departments with standardized content. So all the content that needs to be standardized and updated by a central group of people who manage the content, or for example, product informations or company history, some sales arguments, and all these things uh, get lost just because there are so many duplicates and own versions, and everyone copies single slides and combines them with their own slides, and then there's a new file and a new file and all these
Yeah.
things. So
It's a
that's
mess.
basically one. I think everyone knows this struggle.
Yeah.
And yeah, but we are getting used to it. To be honest, this is one of the main aspects, and we got used to it, and have a lot of time spent on just finding the most recent version. Maybe some people listening to this know the situation that you prepare a presentation and then cannot find the most recent one of
Yeah.
this one single slide. Then you maybe call someone in the marketing department and ask, hey, where is this presentation? I need this slide for my presentation tomorrow.
Yeah.
So and this takes a lot of time and also costs companies a lot, to be honest. So, and I know there are, just let's start with this, whether there are slide management solutions today. So this is why some people thought, hey, maybe we should do some kind of slide management or find this kind of slide management solution. So there are solutions starting to solve these issues. And this is one of the problems. Also, another big problem for corporates or for larger companies is this branding guideline topic,
Mm.
because everyone wants to present, or wants their teams to present the correct branding, where because they spend a lot of money on this branding, and they also spend a lot of money on websites, on a booth at a trade fair, on printed materials, and so on. So there's a special logo with the right colors and a new font they actually bought for a lot of money, and new design guidelines and all these things. And then you see the presentations from some persons, and you think, okay, it's Comic Sans. The logo is the version we had 5 years ago. It's
Yeah.
not how a presentation or an element that you present somewhere. It's basically, it also can be an autoplay presentation at a
Yeah.
trade fair or so. It's not looking like we want it to look. And the branding is kind of your business card to the outer
Yeah.
world, because as a larger company, this is how you want to be recognized, how you want to be reminded. And it's also something you see the logo or the colors or the branding and then memorize it and always combine it with the products or the services of this company. And therefore, branding is such an important part. But yeah, in today's world of presentations, it's basically more about the individual design and the creative possibilities, which is also fine for some use cases. To be honest,
Yep.
it needs this. But in a corporate world where, especially in a larger company where a lot of people use or reuse the same content, this is basically an issue, because I don't want that everyone as a sales team has another design. They all should go out there with the same branding, which is on point and which also increases professionalism that is seen by others for this company.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, if you think about it, as you said, the branding exercise is a very expensive one in first place, and not going with the brand and not sticking to the brand could cause, not to mention even legal issues at some point. Like that could be so huge. We also push our customers when we train them to stick to the brand. We always say, as you mentioned, right? Sometimes if you get the approval, if you ask internally, let's say the PR or the branding team, hey, give me freedom to design whatever I want, right? And you have it in written form, sure, go ahead, do it. But if you don't have that, you have to stick to the brand and you have to forget all of the advices that are coming up in the next 10 minutes of this training. All right. You have a font, you have colors, you have, let's say, specific shapes or forms or whatever it is. And no matter whether you like it, whether you like them or not, you have to stick to those, right?
Yeah.
And if it's possible, probably you'll say a few words here. I'll be curious to know more, a little bit more about, because most of the times I think that if you look at the, let's say, the PowerPoint world, if you look at the Google Slides world since recently, you would say, okay, these guys just have a template and it should work. But people that are listening to this one know that even though that you have a template, that doesn't equal we're staying on brand, right?
Yeah.
And there are many reasons why that happens. How do you, like, for example, like, what do you guys do at Presono to make sure that this is easy for the person on the other side, like for the sales person or the marketing person, to stay on brand? Like, in few words, what is the answer there?
The answer is, to be honest, a really easy one, because we also have templates and they are grouped as template sets. So you know, okay, for this use case, for example, a sales presentation, there's one template set and all the salespeople use this template set. But our templates are combined with permissions. And
Mm,
on the one hand, you have an administration team or a marketing team that defines central settings like the font, the allowed font sizes, for example, the color scheme, so that you don't have the chance to go into different colors. Oh, you can only use the color that the marketing team gave you. So the color picker only has these 3, 5, or 10 colors to choose.
colors, yeah.
And also you only have this one or two fonts that are actually allowed to be used. And also the single areas where you place your content into are defined with permissions. So the administration team, the marketing team, can exactly define, or even the agency, if you have an agency doing all
Yeah.
this work for you, they can define who is allowed to put which kind of content where and what is allowed to do with this content. So the hardest limitation is to define areas for a, let's say, headline, for a large image, for a short subtext line, or things like that. And the user that fills in his or content is only allowed to type the text there and not to format it in any way. It's already pre-formatted to place an image there, and it always is in the right dimensions, so it cannot be scaled unproportional. Also, you only select the cropping range, for example, and then there's another text part for the subtext line, and he types the text in, and that's it. And this is the hardest limitation. So, and there are different grades of permissions in
Yeah.
between, and you define who is allowed to do how many
Well,
changes. So you
yeah.
also can allow someone to do everything they want in each color, each font, and put it everywhere on the slide. But in the hardest way, it's just fill it out with your content and you're ready to go. and you
Yeah.
cannot change the animation or all these things. And the good thing about this is the central management of these templates. So if you decide to change the font centrally for everyone, it changes just with one click on the save button. You change it, click on save, and everyone who had used this font automatically gets converted to the new font
Yeah.
or to the new color or the new logo or whatever you want. And so this is basically what we do. We put permissions as an additional layer and in between these ranges for the users.
Yeah, otherwise, for everyone who is listening and for everyone who is still bounded, let's say, by the corporate's decision to use any other platform, because that's most of the times it's a corporate decision being passed on from, let's say, the headquarters. Let's say they have decided to go Google Slides for some reason, which is to me very strange decision, but that's me. Anyway, there are okay. Let's be honest. There are advantages of each and every tool and every
Yeah.
platform out there. Let's be very frank there. For everyone that's listening, I mean, guys, you really have to understand that being and sticking to the brand is extremely important. Like if you are not sure about something, and especially if that presentation is a public one, it's not delivered internally, and you're not sure about something, please consult with PR, with the marketing, with the branding team, just to be on the safe side. That is super important. If you don't have a tool like what Martin is talking to you about, like Presono, where you don't even have the chance to go off brand, and you're not sure, just try to reach out to somebody to help you out. That's I'm so I'm amazed how many presentations I see from some of the top brands. Martin, probably you also have seen such,
Yeah.
where you see a top brand, like a top Fortune 50 brand, and it's not on brand. I'm like, oh my god, that is the my favorite part, the logo of the company, which appears on every slide for a reason. Let's not even go into that discussion, but on every slide is stretched. This is, I mean, yeah,
Or
that is
jumps between different
no,
positions
no,
if
not
you
only jump between different positions. The logo itself has been stretched, like it's
completely. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, completely.
S-
Not
s-
just jumps because of the alignment issues,
yeah.
but it's stretched, or some partner or vendor or their customer's logo is stretched. And that is even crazier. If I'm their customer and my logo appears on their slide and it's not the one that our company uses and has, I will be very mad. Like I will definitely call them out afterwards. That is guaranteed.
Yeah, and maybe one thing I'm interested in your opinion on this, and another thing that goes in hand with this branding is the modern approach of design, because we see a lot of corporate design manuals where you look through the menu and you're really fascinated because it's a cool branding, cool fonts, a modern design. You think, wow, they really got into this. The agency they had was really good. And then you come to the part on this manual, if there's a part about it, it's not
Yeah.
for sure, but then you come to the part where it says presentation designs, and you see the most classical PowerPoint template we all have seen
Yeah.
since 30 years. And it's not against PowerPoint. It's just about the creativity that is missing here, because then you have the standard font, just one area of color, a logo, and that's it. There's no design, nothing more. And if you look on websites, how much money is spent on websites these days, or on individual apps and on 3D animations and sales apps, and I don't know, but this part of presentation is nobody looks at it really. So it's hard for me to understand, because we live in this modern design where there are so many tools and so many approaches on design and on modern branding and things, and then you come to the topic of presentations, and in most corporate use cases there's just no one has thought about being modern here, or think through this again. What's your
Yeah.
point of view on this?
Yeah. One very few, like few things here, because I also am completely amazed when I see this. Like probably people will also recognize their organization in that. First of all, when you work with designers, and you have internal design team, let's say, the first thing that bothers me is that designers, let's just start with the fact that they hate designing presentations for a reason. All right, for some reason, it's below their profession. It's below their grades. It's somehow like, if they're designing presentations, that's like, wait a minute, I'm a professional designer. I'm shouldn't be designing presentations. Like, that is low level work. And I'm like, that's not exactly the case, but it's considered the case for many, many designers. That is the first thing that shocks me, like, completely shocks me. On the other side, you have people that, you know, want to do better. They just want to do better, and they're searching for ways. They're pushing the limits, trying to do something, trying platforms, trying tools, trying spending the time, especially when they have the time. Probably here a shameless plug for some friends, our friends from a company that's called Slide Model, for example. Here, do you know those guys at Slide Model?
I think you told me about them in
Oh,
another call. Yeah.
maybe. I don't know how many calls we had already.
Yeah.
But those guys, for example, like, they are trying to help that part of the group.
Yeah.
The individual part of the group that are like, okay, I don't have time. I'm bounded by, let's say, Google Slides or PowerPoint, but I want my slides to look good. Because I know that that represents me, you
Yeah.
know, and my brand and my name, and it's my reputation behind it. And then you can go on their website, find some really cool templates, shapes, charts, tables, like various things, and you download them, and that's it, and you use them. So you save time this way. But on your point with the corporate world, when you see those really cool branding, like the brand guideline, and for example, even the template itself, I really think that what ends up happening is that many times the people that are the organizations that hire branding agencies, you know,
Yeah.
they are also being tasked to create the presentation outline, meaning the presentation, um, how the presentation should be looking at, right? How they should look, what is the template, etc. And those people, most of the times, unfortunately, sorry for me to say it out loud. I have said it many times anyway, but most of the times, those guys don't have any clue about how a presentation should look like, what the presentation template actually means,
Yeah.
and somehow, on the top of exactly what you said, like, they spend so much, like, the brand itself is so creative, so well done. When they get to the presentation, and that's including my first point with the designers, for some reason, professional designers, when they get to the presentation part, I notice that they somehow forget how to design. They forget all the rules, all the techniques, all the principles that they're following when they're designing, let's say, a social media creative or a website or any other design for that matter. Like, they forget about alignment even. Like, wait a minute, why are you not aligning stuff when you're in the context of a presentation?
Yeah.
Like, why is that different? Whatever, you
Yeah.
know? And
And
I just
I think
don't
they,
get it.
and it's yeah, and it's sad. To be honest, it's a little bit sad because there's an opportunity that gets lost, and they also need to keep in mind the difference between the different use cases. As so, we have designers in our team that they are doing the thing for different customers of ours and doing it day by day. But it's a difference if they need a presentation to bring out the basic messages of their company, why they are out there, so their key messages or so. And if you look at a classical sales presentation, surely then the sales presentation is a little bit more text. It's not the keynote presentation. It's maybe not that pure just an image and one text line
Yeah,
because it's just not
agree.
possible because the salespeople just need a little bit more help here or a little bit more arguments, and they need a template to bring 3 to 5 arguments is explicitly for this one customer they are talking to and all these things. So this is also a thing you need to keep in mind because it's not just one template you need to do, but you need templates for different use cases. And I
Yep.
think many people and also agencies are not thinking about this.
Yeah. Hopefully people will listen, because the people that are listening will be from the PR and the marketing team. So listen to what has been said, you need templates for the different scenarios that you get in, right?
Yeah.
If you think about your template, be that like whatever the template is, you have to be chasing a template that serves the presenter. That's most of the times the template. I don't know what you're seeing with your customers, but I'm sure that you have seen the template being opening, closing slide, and one for internal, like one that's inside with few bullet points predefined, and that's the template. I'm like, how could that be a template? Like, do you have those type of cases with your customers?
Yeah, we saw this and we want to change this. So this is basically our approach is also we start with that and then tell them, hey, that's not enough. And we also so the issue for us is we also have this implementation of the tool in parallel, so therefore we have a lot more to discuss than the regular agency, and that's also helps us because we understand how our customers think and work and what are their use cases, and so this helps us to bring them online and tell them, hey, we heard you have this and this use case, so let's talk about these three use cases or scenarios as you called it, and not just one general template. So
Yeah,
it's and this really works out because the companies then realize, ah, yeah, I see there are more things to think about, and then they actually have different template sets within their Presono instance, for example, so
yeah,
that every department has the templates for their use cases. And this is one is the standard sales presentation, for example, and one is the really fancy and extremely advanced thing just for a keynote of some people that they're holding keynote, and they're so and they are completely different. So they have this branding, yeah, the branding, and this is what connects both. But how it's designed in detail is completely different, to be honest.
yeah. Very, very much different. So everyone who is listening to this one, again, obviously you heard the languaging issue, and yeah, that is very hard to tackle with things like SharePoint, to be very honest, unfortunately. But if you have it, probably now, yeah, now you know where you can go. You have heard many other things, but again, on the branding part, again, going back to the branding part, please stick and be on brand and ask for advices if needed. If not, search for a creative way to limit your users, to not do something that's not allowed. Now, going back to this one, by the way, I remember a story, and I was recently telling it, for a company that's operating all across Europe. So they're one of the biggest brands out there in regards to drinks like mineral water, all of those type of things. So they have the most boutique type of mineral water, on and on and on. Anyway, so we have worked with their CEO here in Bulgaria, their local CEO here, for a financial report, which he asked us to templatize. So on each quarter, the 5 or 6 CEOs for each country were receiving a report that was 431 pages,
Wow.
and they are expected to read that. In that document, each country more or less has to present their numbers and what they have achieved. However, their biggest one of the biggest problems is that not only how the way the document looks, but the fact that every country measures different things. So it's you're comparing complete different things at the end of the day. So he created a structure for what each country should put in. We created everything, we templatized it in such a way that you can just change the numbers of the chart in the chart, and it's over. He sends it over, right, because it's on PowerPoint, and there you don't have those limitations, right?
Yeah.
As in your case, like, you can say, okay, don't use that color, don't use that font, don't write text here, right? And you may want to do it, but it's forbidden in the tool, which is super nice. So he sends it. I will never forget that he sends that. So the Bulgarian part is ready, the Netherlands part is ready, all of it looks great. The template goes to France, and he calls me up, sends me a file, and calls me up and tells me, like, just try to explain to me, how is it possible that the French people added pink color to our presentation, right? And imagine a brand that is all about water, right? It's all about blue, the nuances of blue, etc. Pink color, right? Because they have complete freedom, and because they thought it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice. So they have added pink color on many of their slides in places, and like they created new placeholders. Some of them were positioned in a diagonal fashion, which is
Okay.
also very interesting design decision, etc., etc. So they didn't have that capability to limit them, and you see
Yeah.
what happens. I'll never forget it. He was amazed. He was so angry by what happened. He was super and amazed at the same time by their
Yeah.
creativity. Yeah. Anyway,
It's
craziness,
Yeah, there are a
craziness.
lot of stories just about the design and branding. It's it's funny
Yeah.
to see how huge this
One last
topic
here,
is.
like any other big issue that you have noticed in the corporate world, like obviously the versioning of the slides, the language translations, and having again the most recent copy, the branding issues. Everyone is doing whatever. The design issues in general, right? Not having the template that, as people say, or as the business world now says, enables people, right? That's a very modern buzzword nowadays. Enables the presenters. Any other, so that we made them five.
Yeah, there are a lot of more. I'll shorten this to the one last thing. That's the part of uh, who knows what has been presented or sent out to someone. So
Oh, that's a big one.
because you present to someone, maybe you switch between two or three files because the question comes up, you switch to another presentation, show three slides, you switch back because you're maybe not in the staged situation where you are on a stage and have your one speech or presentation to do, but you're in a kind of dialogue in a sales presentation, and there's this buying center in front of you consisting out of six people, and they are asking you questions, so you start to switch in between, or you're in a training situation and switch between different topics because questions pop up. And then you have this huge workload of combining. At first, you need to remember what you have shown, and then you need to combine all these information afterwards to one presentation file and send it out. Probably it's a large file. You need Dropbox WeTransfer or other solutions just to
Yeah.
send out the file, which is really annoying. And then you don't know who is using what in my company and who of my customers is interested in what. So internally and externally, it's a kind of black box because as a, let's say, head of sales, you don't know what presentations, what slides, what messages are really used in your
Yeah.
sales. Everyone says you, yeah, I'm with this customer. I told him that, but you don't know which products, which services, which information are shown. And on the other hand, the salesperson themselves, or even the trainer in the training department, or in the HR, if they send out some things to a school or university because they want to attract new people, no one knows. Has someone looked at this presentation? Maybe you know if it was downloaded, but most of the people don't know has some who has been looking at which slide, which presentation, and which information, and for how long. So it's
Yeah.
basically a lot of questions that pops up because you want to optimize your content. Maybe you see, okay, message 1 and 2 are really engaging and everyone wants to see it and wants to reread it and look at this afterwards, and message 3 is just not recognized, and maybe you want to change the design, change the message, or the change your whole presentation or the storyline, because many presentations follow kind of storyline, and maybe you need to adapt it because it just the users or the viewers just don't get it. And yeah, currently you can't do this, and this is a huge thing because for a company, a corporate company, so a larger company, this is basically money on the street because
Yeah.
they just need to know who is interested in what, and it's way more easier to engage the audiences or to sell stuff or to inform about this or to re-engage already existing customers, or even to just drive a little bit more action into the people in the training department or so there's a lot of use cases, but everyone wants to know what are we using, what content is engaging, what works for our presenters and for our customers or prospects and so on. And this is the last bigger issue that we already also are solving within our tool, but what we recognized, and yeah, everyone tells us, hey, okay, yeah, I never thought about it, but yeah, it would be a good thing to know all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. That is now the first time I saw something like that. I saw it with a PDF file that, like, something was attached to the PDF file somehow, and I saw that it was possible to get analytics from like who is opening, who is doing what, like how much time they are spending on each and every page, etc. And I was like, whoa, that is a big one. I mean, that is truly a big one. So did you guys, like, you already have the feature, right?
Yeah, we already have this, and so basically, to maybe to I don't want to do an advertisement
Yeah, of course,
in
no
large,
worries.
but maybe just to summarize this. So basically, Presono is more than just a presentation tool. It's a whole platform where you manage all your content, your single slides. You can reuse them, define all your design things, and also analyze the usage internally
Yeah,
as well as externally shared presentations. So that's basically everything within the tool, which shows how the whole presentation process of corporates is built into the tool.
yeah,
Because
just
in
yeah,
my
go ahead.
opinion, or in our experience, a presentation is more than just this one thing that you show on some screen or so. It's really about a preparation, about the creation, the design, as we already talked, then the actually application and where you show it and talk to it, but also the follow up and sharing. And this is all about the presentation. It's not just about one slide with the design. It's all the things that come along with that. And I think
Yeah.
that's important to always keep in mind.
Yeah, one last here on the tool itself. Like, I know that you're targeting it a lot towards the corporate world. Can the individual also go ahead and use it though?
Yeah, surely. So it's possible to use it as a single person or a small team, but we focus on B2B, and we focus on marketing and sales departments or companies using it in this B2B area. A single person surely can use it, but you always have to think about it. Okay, is it a benefit from me to have this reusable slides or this branding guideline things or the sharing functionalities? And for most people that do highly individual one-time presentation, it's maybe not that engaging or the best tool or the best thing.
Mm,
It's more focusing on this thing in the corporate world, but it could be used. Yeah, it could be used
got
for
it.
other people, for
Got it.
individual ones.
You are obviously going to be one of the speakers of the event.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
looking forward to that.
yeah, I was about to ask, how excited are you?
I'm really excited. I'm already a little bit nervous because you told me you need the introduction from me with the text and the headline, and I thought, hey, okay, now it's getting real. It's only, I think, half a year, and then it's there, and yeah, I'm really a little bit nervous, but I'm looking forward to it. And
Yeah,
also
I
to the
mean,
other sessions, because the sessions were great with in the 21 edition. Great talks, great speakers, and so I'm also not only looking forward to my own slot, but also to the other slots, and to
yeah,
learn additional stuff about these
that was,
all these
by the
topics.
way, one of the very interesting things is that a lot of the speakers themselves, like, you will be surprised how many people said, I'm joining just for my session because I don't have the time or whatever. And I received at least 10 emails from our speakers afterwards that were like, I joined to just see how it is before my session, and then I stayed till the end of the event. So yeah, it was truly cool, indeed. What can we expect from your session, by the way? Like, just give us a glimpse. Do you have some ideas already for what are you going to cover? Because it's still September 2021. The event is in April 2022. Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I had to think about it, and yeah, it's as as we discussed. I'm in the tool section, so I'm a little bit more focusing on the tool, because I think that's where our strengths are, to show the people how we are solving all these issues we're just talking about. Because
Yeah,
I think everyone who heard us now knows, okay, we understand the problems of this corporate world, and I want to show how one tool can be more than just a creative presentation solution, but a real platform in this marketing and sales area, because it's not only about individual creation, but the branding and the collaboration and the exchange in between teams and all these things. And yeah, I think it's maybe you can do a kind of comparison to a sports person who is focusing on marathon running, for example. These are tools that already exist with a that are really good in this one thing, and maybe we are kind of I think I've wrote it in my short summary, the decathlete software, because we are good in different solutions within one tool. We are, if you look at only on one single thing, maybe we're not the best if you compare it to the marathon runner, for example, in running also, but we are nearly that good and can do this on different levels for different functionalities. So that's a little bit the comparison I want to start with, and to show how a tool can be used in this area, because a lot of companies are afraid of implementing new tools and all the work they have to do when implementing and changing the behavior
Hmm.
of the user. And no one needs to be afraid of this, because yeah, it's not that hard as it sounds, because we have thought through this, and we have now 6 years of experiences with larger companies doing this, so a lot of learnings that we put into the tool again from all the feedback we got. And yeah, I want to show this a little bit and talk about these possibilities.
Brilliant. I will be moderating your session, so everyone who is listening to this one at some point in the future, hopefully before April 2022, but even if you listen to this one after April 2022, for sure you can get the recordings from the event and see the session of Martin and many, many other speakers. I'll be moderating that session. To be very honest, I cannot wait to see what are you going to show. Plus, I'm completely sure that up until April 2022, there will be even more new features and updates to the platform itself. So hopefully, you can bring us behind the scenes also on what's coming up next. We'll see how that one goes.
Yes.
Probably show us something that is not released yet, because that I think will be very interesting to everyone. However, one question before the last. We always ask our guests, who else should we get on the podcast? Do you have one name? Let's also put a limitation here. Do you have one name from the presentation industry or from any other industry that you, however, connect with the topic of successful, effective presentations that you think would be a very interesting guest?
Yeah, to be honest, I have to think about a friend and former colleague of mine, Lucas. He is working at One More Thing in Vienna, so also here in Austria. And One More Thing is focusing also a little bit on presentation, but also on the why. So they focus on storytelling and the why, and they also offer part of design, but it's also more than the design. It's more about, okay, what's your basic idea, what's your why, and how do you want to bring out this, how to want to communicate this out to your audiences. And they are focusing on this, and that's a friend of mine and also a great guy, and I think he is would be a good partner maybe to talk about. And he has a uh, good history, and he worked for Adobe, for Apple, for Microsoft. So it's also an interesting point of view, because he's a little bit older and has a little bit more experience. So this is, I think, he would be a great fit from my point of view.
Sounds intriguing. I wrote his name down and the company's name down. So at some point, I will ask you to introduce us to him and
Absolutely.
see if he's going to be in for the idea. Final question here before we wrap up the episode: where can people find more about you? How can they connect? What's the best platform somewhere on the web? And where should they go to find more about what you guys are doing at Presono?
Yeah, so the most easy way is to go on presono.com, presono.com, where you can find out more about our tool and what we do and our customer and use cases. Feel free to get in touch there, and get in touch with one of my colleagues or directly to myself. And you can also send me an email. It's the most, I think it's the easiest way, at mb@presono.com. So MB for Martin and Behrens, mb@presono.com. But you can also write me on LinkedIn or so, but I think email is the easier access. Yeah.
Brilliant. It's very rare for someone to give their email over the podcast. So I wrote it down, mb@personal.com. Brilliant. Okay, Martin, thank you so much for joining us. That was super nice. It's already 48 minutes. Wow, is it? Like, what the hell? So it's already 48 minutes. Thank you so much for spending the time with us here. And surely looking forward to you joining us at the event.
Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for the talk. I enjoyed being here, and all the best for the next steps of preparation and for the event.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone. This was Martin from Presono. You will find all of the links that he mentioned, including his email, in the show notes. No matter where you're consuming this episode, check out also our website. It's 356labs.com to see what we are doing. Also, including the virtual event service, we just relaunched that webpage. Martin, we got into the virtual events page and virtual conferences for a reason, obviously. Many people asked us now to help them with that part. And of course, we were talking at some point in the episode for Present to Succeed conference. If you're not part of it, if you haven't heard about it, check it out, and hopefully we'll see you there. Thanks for listening, everyone. Subscribe, like, follow, comment. You know how it goes, and see you in the next one.